The Young and the Restless spoilers. Monday full episodes, October 7th, 2024. Sharon stood in the garage, her fingers brushing against the edges of the bloodstained scarf. It was Heather's, her final connection to a life brutally ended. The fabric, once soft and elegant, was now marred with the dark crimson evidence of Heather's violent demise. Sharon had hidden it away in the trunk of her car, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. Now, as everything spiraled out of control and chance closed in on the truth, she knew it was time to act. She had to get rid of it, but not in a way that would point to her. No, Sharon needed a new target, someone to take the fall for Heather's murder. If the police found this bloody scarf in someone else's possession, they would have all the evidence they needed to close the case. The person holding the scarf would become the killer in their eyes. And Sharon? She would be free. A twisted idea formed in her mind, dark and calculating. Daniel or Lucy? One of them would be perfect. Both of them had been tangled in Heather's life, and either could be framed for the crime. Sharon's lips curled into a wicked smile. The plan was forming in her mind, and it was flawless, or at least it would be, with a little help. She picked up the phone and called Cameron. He had always been her partner in crime, the one person who understood her dark, twisted thoughts. Sharon had long since abandoned any pretense of morality with him. Together, they spoke in cruel, calculating terms about people as if they were mere pawns in their sick game. And right now, Sharon needed Cameron's insight to perfect her plan. When Cameron answered, his voice was as smooth as ever. "Sharon," he said with a low chuckle, "what new wicked scheme do you have for me today?" Sharon wasted no time. "I still have Heather's scarf," she began, her tone icy. "The one with her blood on it. If the police find it in someone else's possession, they'll think that person killed her. I'm thinking of planting it on Daniel or Lucy." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a sinister laugh. "That's deliciously twisted," Cameron replied. "But you'll have to be careful. Daniel's sharp, and Lucy, well, let's just say she's more unpredictable than she seems. You'll need to set the stage perfectly. Make sure they have no way out once the trap is sprung." Sharon nodded, pacing the floor as she thought through the details. Cameron was right. It had to be done meticulously, leaving no room for error. She couldn't afford any mistakes. Daniel's been paranoid lately, ever since the investigation heated up. But Lucy? She's been grieving. I could use that against her. Cameron's voice dropped to a low, conspiratorial whisper. Lucy could be easier to break. Frame her as an emotional wreck, lashing out in grief. If the police find the scarf in her possession, they'll assume she snapped. No one would ever see you as the culprit. Sharon's pulse quickened at the thought. It was a perfect plan, one that would divert all attention away from her and point the finger squarely at Lucy. She could picture it now. Lucy, sobbing in the interrogation room, the police grilling her about the bloody scarf, unable to explain how it ended up in her possession. It would be a spectacle, and one that Sharon would escape unscathed. But as she and Cameron continued to discuss the finer points of the plan, another storm was brewing. Across town, Phyllis was determined to get to the bottom of Heather's death. Ever since Heather's body had been found, Phyllis had been relentless in her pursuit of the truth. She knew something wasn't right, and now she was convinced that Sharon had a hand in it. Phyllis had shared her suspicions with Nick, but his response was far from what she expected. Instead of encouraging her, Nick urged caution. "Phyllis, let it go," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Heather's gone. Digging into this now is only going to cause more pain. For you, for everyone." Phyllis narrowed her eyes, sensing the undercurrent of Nick's words. It wasn't just about sparing everyone more grief. Nick was trying to protect Sharon. Of course he was. He had always had a blind spot when it came to his ex-wife, always willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. But Phyllis wasn't about to back down. She saw through Sharon's lies and manipulations, and she knew there was more to Heather's death than met the eye. "You're protecting her," Phyllis said bitterly, crossing her arms. "You think Sharon had nothing to do with this, but I can see right through her. She's hiding something, Nick. And I'm going to find out what it is." Nick sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. "Phyllis, this obsession isn't going to lead anywhere good. You've got to let it go." But Phyllis wouldn't be swayed. If anything, Nick's words only fueled her determination. She would find out what Sharon was hiding, and she wouldn't stop until the truth was out in the open. Meanwhile, Sharon was already moving forward with her plan. She had planted the scarf in the back of her mind for too long. Now it was time to act. She scouted Daniel's place, keeping tabs on his movements, but found him too guarded. Daniel had heightened his security, and there was no easy way to get close to him without raising suspicion. That left Lucy. Lucy had been a wreck since Heather's death, emotionally fragile and vulnerable. Sharon knew it would be easier to slip the scarf into her belongings without being noticed. But there was still a risk. If Lucy somehow pieced things together, it could all backfire. At the same time, the tension between Kyle and Victor had reached a breaking point. They were celebrating what they thought was a major victory, stealing confidential documents from Jabet that they believed would give them the upper hand. Kyle had gone behind his father's back, working with Victor to swipe the information and secure their dominance. But little did they know, it was all part of Jack's plan. The documents Kyle and Victor had stolen were fakes, cleverly planted by Jack to mislead them. Jack had known Kyle was conspiring with Victor, and he had used their greed against them. Now, as Victor prepared to pour a fortune into producing the faulty formula, Jack stood back, watching with satisfaction. Soon, Victor's entire operation would crumble, and Kyle would be left in the wreckage, realizing too late that he had been played. As Kyle raised a glass to toast with Victor, a smug grin on his face, he had no idea the trap that had been set for him. And just like Sharon's deadly game, this one was about to implode. Back in Genoa City, Phyllis kept digging, determined to find the evidence she needed to prove Sharon's guilt. What she didn't know was that Sharon had already broken into Heather's house on the night of the murder, leaving subtle traces of her presence. Phyllis was on the right trail, but would she be able to gather enough proof before Sharon set her plan in motion? The town was on the edge of chaos, with secrets and lies threatening to engulf everyone. Sharon's twisted plot to frame Lucy, Jack's counterstrike against Kyle and Victor, and Phyllis's quest for justice were all converging. It was only a matter of time before the truth came crashing down, and no one would escape unscathed.